Recording started.
Okay, we're gonna start. Want to call to order the July 29th meeting of the Public Safety and Civic Facilities Community Task Force. We're trying to get started here. Just call to order. I believe we have a quorum. We have 10 task force members here today. We can proceed. Want to ask any questions about meeting minutes from our last meeting? Seeing none, we think that will be approved by consent. So we have public comments section, and I believe we have at least one person who is interested in making a public comment. Chris.
Yes, good evening. Hello, everyone. My name's Chris Craven, and I'm an Issaquah Arts Commissioner, an Issaquah nonprofit board member, and an Issaquah resident for 13 years. I'd just like to thank Mayor Polly and the entire task force for all the time and effort you've put into this important study. It's a great effort, and it's really important to our city. You've come up with 2 site options, but I just want to urge you to think it's not just about City Hall. You know, the negative impacts to local businesses in our creative district if City Hall leaves Old Town could be significant. I can think of a couple of examples of large employers, key anchors, leaving areas and the impact that it left. One of them was Russell Investments, was the largest employer in downtown Tacoma, and they vacated and moved to Seattle. And the small businesses, the art district, the museums, the theaters there struggled for years. And then I can also think of a more recent example when Amazon had to shut down from COVID to all the small businesses and restaurants in South Lake Union. I encourage you to consider the creative use of the alley and the duplex and the Old Town option. And please consider carefully the vitality of Old Town and all the years and efforts that everyone has put in to make it a vibrant heart and soul of Issaquah. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you, Chris. Autumn, is there anyone else who is here to make public comments?
No.
Welcome, Mayor Polly. So we're just to give you an overview, we're going to have the mayor speak, and then Autumn is going to sort of bring us up to speed in terms of where we are, where we hope to go. Lori will be making a presentation by DLR of the 2 test bits of the properties that we voted most favorably on during our last meeting. And then we're going to break up into 2 groups, one for each site, and kind of discuss the pros and cons of each. Come back together again and see whether we have consensus on one or we'd like to proceed with both. And then kind of wrap that up by trying to decide what recommendations we want to make to the city council.
Wow. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to join you tonight. I am here for a gratitude moment, but also, if it's all right with you all, I'm just going to sit for the first hour of the meeting as well. I do have another event to go to, but I have an hour, so super fun. This is my favorite kind of community engagement. Is sometimes we have these really difficult challenges, and Councilman Mertz will say this has been talked about for decade and a half, if not more, and one of our best tools that we use are these very concentrated task force, where we ask you to do an enormously deep dive with a lot of information and actually make a recommendation. And sometimes that's a little intimidating thing to do when you're recommending to 7 elected officials on the choices they should make and the path that they should take. But we have had such great benefits and outcomes come out of these task forces. You are able to really bring that community voice to the table in a really meaningful way. And I also know you could be doing something else, and you chose to join the task force. And I my 30 years in Issaquah, I've been on several of these myself, and I will tell you, our community steps up when we ask them to step up. And I am so proud of all of you that you did this, and that you're finishing up your work tonight and making some probably strongly worded and difficult recommendations for council to consider. So then it's on their shoulders, and we'll have to see where they land. But thank you so much. This is really, really a thoughtful, engaging, and talented community, and I'm very proud that you all signed up to do this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Autumn, do you want to lead off here?
So good day, everyone. I am back from Australia. I shared, I think, with this group where I was or what I was up to, but I was awarded a fellowship to go study abroad in Australia and embed myself in a community that's been impacted by bushfire, and so learn a lot about their recovery efforts and what we need to do in Issaquah as we prepare for wildfire. So it was a great experience professionally, and it was a lot of fun, a wild ride. So, but I'm back, and apologies that I missed the last meeting, but very excited for tonight and for us to wrap up our recommendations and take this back to the City Council. So to start, we always like to really ground ourselves in what our project goals are. These are the same goals that the council set on this project over 2 years ago of ensuring safety, responsibly stewarding public dollars, provide community accessibility and convenience, support economic development, deliver enhanced community amenities, and embody environmental stewardship. This group has also looked at the next slide as well in each of our meetings to remind ourselves around what we're getting at as far as consensus. So in the absence of unanimous agreement, decisions may be reached when most members of the task force agree on a clear option, and those who may oppose it say they've had a reasonable opportunity to influence the choice and will support the final decision. So very important again tonight as we start thinking through how we're best packaging this up and recommending options to the City Council. So we have done several exercises to really get through some of the priorities of this group. And as a reminder, the #1 priority of the task force is addressing police space and function needs as soon as possible. That has been loud and clear throughout each of our meetings, followed by maximizing the use of city-owned property, phasing the implementation of this to fit within the city's means, and then ensuring we don't impact IPD operations. So this prioritization happened at the last meeting while I was out, and Jeannie and the co-chairs have caught me up. That the two main options that the task force was most interested in diving in further on were Pickering and City Hall South and the duplex. As a reminder, it was also a priority that we were only looking at city-owned properties for this effort as far as where to site a City Hall. And so we then asked DLR to do a deeper dive both into Pickering and City Hall South to just give us some more information, a few visuals that we'll dive into now with Lori. So like you had mentioned, we're going to go through these slides and then divide into two groups and really talk through each of these options before coming back together. Here's just the agenda for tonight, which I think you've already kind of addressed, Co-Chair. So off to Lori.
Sure. So the City Hall South duplex lots are a total of, we talked about this before, they're about 21,000 square feet. Our building square footage is about 34,000 square feet, so it's going to be pretty tight. It is in the 500-year floodplain. There are old town design standards that we have to acknowledge and follow. There are currently no known environmental issues. That's the biggest risk we have is what's in the ground, right? We go through those environmental issues. We have some CBD zoning height limit, the lesser of 40 feet or 3 stories. Just the City Hall South site was used for this test fit. The alley and the duplex lot were not included in that because there's still some stuff we have to figure out about how, because we're likely not going to vacate that alley. And then the residential district, we need to see if we can put parking there or not. So those are further studies and estimating that will be done. So the approximate footprint of what you're going to see is 11,400 square feet. City Hall functions are about 2/3 of that, with 1/3 being the kind of community spaces that we talked about. The building is going to meet that 40-foot height with a 12'3" typical floor-to-floor height, which is on the shorter side of for a building, a civic building. And then the ROM cost in 2025 dollars for construction. Remember we talked about construction versus total project cost. For construction is $29.5 to $35.5 million with a total project cost of $44.25 to $53.25 million. Yes.
Before you go on, Lori, when you were talking about environmental risk, you were talking about subsurface. Do we have any survey of the existing building to determine whether we're going to have things like asbestos abatement?
For the demo?
Yeah.
No. Jeannie says no.
So that is a.
It is a risk, yeah. But generally speaking, when you're looking at a new site, most of your risk is in the ground, right? So these are some test studies that we did to look at how the building would sit on the site. And these are just block planning. We do have some that are more rendered. So the top 2 floors of City Hall functions with the first floor being where the community conference functions. It gives it a little bit of a presence from both that greenway as well as the main road. But that again doesn't touch the duplex or the alleyway. And it's really a lot line kind of development, right? We're right up on the edge of the street there.
Laura, the duplex that needs to be studied for potential parking, that's the building directly to the south, right?
Yes, behind you.
Yeah, behind it, okay. Right,
This one.
right. And that's currently residential? Okay.
Well, no, it's zoned community facilities.
It's, right, but
It can have parking on it,
Yeah.
either structured or surface parking.
Right, but it's currently a residential duplex.
Well, you have.
It's being used for office.
It's being used for office. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, and while we say it could have structured parking on it, it is not nearly big enough to build a parking structure on. It'd be useless to build a parking structure on that small site. Just structured parking is not an option for the duplex site, okay?
Yeah.
Next.
Does the
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you all down there.
The total cost, is that, you might have read this, but is it including demolishing the building too?
Chris?
And just real quick, is it too small to build like the library parking?
It's too small to build any structured parking. It's very
It's just
small
too
site.
Jonathan?
The building looks really tight on the lawn.
Yep.
Is there room for a sidewalk between Sunset and the building? Because it looks like it's like.
It looks like it. It's just a SketchUp version, so it's hard to see, but there's room.
Okay.
Is that the City Hall South going to get torn down anyway?
That's always been my understanding, but you know,
That was the recommendation.
Yeah, because otherwise, if we go to Pickering Barn or somewhere else, then we just have this vacant, ugly building.
So we're moving the court to King County.
Right.
It's my goal that most of our other staff will be moving to City Hall, so we will have a vacant building. It would be our recommendation to demolish it. That decision has not been made yet. But knowing how many needs are in that current building, as far as being able to try to remodel it, our recommendation is better to start
Those
now.
demo costs, wherever we go, most likely will happen, but then at least we'll have a chunk of it. We'll have some dirt.
But there is some IT infrastructure in that building that town will relocate before you can demo that building.
Yeah, so with the demo, that wouldn't happen anytime soon, just because we have other things to relocate, but yeah. But it's our goal to start transitioning staff out of that building.
So then we just gave it some fenestration, right? We gave it a little bit of a look and feel. This look does meet the Old Town standards, but of course we would need to present that and make sure it's meeting all of the standards that are available for that in the next one.
Did you pull that color from the veil? Alice?
I don't know where you got that going from.
Any plastic squares?
Well, veiled blue.
The veil blue.
So just gave you a look from a couple of different angles. So it has a little presence from this side, and we give it a good presence from the sunset, so. And more questions on Old Town?
one just quick. The 500-year floodplain, what are the implications of that to the project?
Federal funding, FEMA funding would be difficult to get unless you raise it out of the raise it out of the floodplain, but other than that, there's not, I mean, it's a choice for the city to make whether or not they want to mitigate that. There aren't any other regulations that make you mitigate the 500-year. The 100-year floodplain is a whole different story.
So if the duplex can be used for parking structure, is there any idea on how to deal with parking? Obviously, City Hall's already in the area, so I don't know, I guess people just keep parking and however they've been parking up till now. So I don't know if there's any way to hit how that's being addressed, or if the duplex can't be used for that, is there any other thoughts on what the duplex could be used for, or?
Well, Jeannie's indicated that the duplex can be, like, you can demolish the duplex and use it for surface parking.
Okay, so add a little bit there.
Yeah.
Do we have a sense of how many parking spaces are used on a daily basis by city staff as opposed to the police? I mean, presumably they could still use those spaces across the street.
I would say 20, just doing math by how many people are coming in a day, how many staff, about 22 to 25 spaces would be needed a day, provided that the city doesn't change their return to work from the office policy.
Just to go back to the parking thing, somebody who recently had to go to City Hall to have a meeting, have some business. It was not fun as a visitor. There was no parking at 11 a.m. So, I mean, it's really hard to access as a consumer of the services in that building without some parking accommodations for visitors. And it was very difficult to be on time because there was Rainier or First, whatever that, those two streets are. They're all full, It may be a little bit of artificiality because of the work going on in the little park there behind Jackson, where there was a lot of trade vans parking there. And that was four spots were busy, but every other spot was full. So I still think parking is something that has to be addressed because otherwise people just put off going down. Right? It makes it very uninviting to go and visit.
Is some of that parking currently taken up by the municipal court?
I don't know.
I would assume it is during the day.
Yes, yeah.
So some of that parking would be gone. Because again, I would imagine most community events are going to happen in the evening. That's typically when people meet for community meetups. But right now, currently, with parking at 11 o'clock, my guess is that's probably being used by the court. Because I know when we go down there for our meetings at 6:30 on Thursdays, it's empty.
Every few years, and I'm not picking on Mayor Polly because it was also true with Mayor Butler and Mayor President, I would ask about parking, and they would dutifully go to a parking study, and they would tell us that there's no problem with parking. And I don't know what to do with that information, but it is something that comes up every few years. The administration, to its credit, does do a parking study and decides that we don't need to do parking, which is horrendously expensive. What's it up to now? $100,000 per stall for structure?
For structure, yeah.
Right, so it's insanely expensive. But, it feels to me like we need more parking, but I keep asking and then the professionals keep telling me we don't need more parking.
In 27 years of doing this job, I've never had a project where they didn't say bathrooms and parking are the two biggest issues.
As somebody who has lived in large cities, Minneapolis, London, Seattle, the parking questions in Issaquah are kind of funny to me because I go to downtown Issaquah all the time. There's parking everywhere. I can park at the library. There's off-street parking. There's community center parking. And it's all free. It's not metered. It's like there's parking everywhere. So my perspective is very different. I think Issaquah has phenomenal parking. And going to City Hall South right across the street, parking would be the same. It wouldn't create new parking problems because it's the same group of people. So my perspective is very different. And I love Issaquah. I think it's incredible. You can park everywhere for free. It blows my mind. They're not charging for that? I don't need a permit? Are you kidding? Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in the Downtown Association board for 7 years, that was the perennial issue. And there's tons of parking. The challenge was wayfinding. Like, people don't know where parking is. And they'll be like saying, oh my God, there's no parking. It's like, actually, there's 37 spots, half a block down. And then the other issue was the businesses are required to have like reserved parking for their businesses, which, especially in the evening, is kind of nuts because no one's in their businesses and they have these "we will tow you" signs. So I think the parking issue can be, I'm with you, it's like it can be resolved with wayfinding, with maybe looking at the requirements and saying, okay, business after 5 o'clock, you can, I mean, there's options.
Yeah.
And yeah, because we would wander around right when people were screaming about parking, we're like, oh, I mean, we would see the spots. But yeah, it's an issue.
Well, and with that, to address the experience of Galen, visitors that are coming to City Hall for whatever, to get a permit or whatever, couldn't there just be some designated spots outside? I don't know how many visitors are at one time, but 5 designated spots closer to the building, maybe where the duplex is for surface parking that says, visitors for City Hall. Or tell the staff to go park 2 blocks away.
I get them all.
Are there any other questions or comments before we move to Pickering?
Pickering is huge, but it's also got the most issues in terms of environmental things, right? So I think the next one, it's in the 100-year floodplain. The site itself is on the historic register. But again, if no state or federal monies are used, Issaquah can choose to do whatever they want on it.
So the full site or just the one?
Full site. There's a 200-foot buffer for the creek. There's an there's an 85-foot height limit, which is great. So pretty good building with that. It's got an urban core zoning, so meaning they want it to be highly densified. And the existing parking on site, some of it will be moved, you'll see, some of it will be changed when we build the building, but we're replacing with in-kind, so there's quite a bit of parking on site. So the footprint that you're going to see is 15,700 square feet. Again, City Hall functions are divided the same. The building height's about 44 feet with a 14-foot floor-to-floor height. This construction cost, just for construction costs in today's dollars, not in the future, today's dollars, 32.5 to 38.5 million, or total project cost 48.25 to 57.75 million. And that includes raising the building up out of the floodplain, putting it up kind of on a plinth that you'd see to mitigate that issue.
Does that explain why the project costs are a little bit higher than?
So we pushed the building up into the corner to give it kind of this more urban feel and to kind of protect that back parking and field area. And so we put the community functions on the first floor and the City Hall functions where the green is. The red dashed outline shows where the parking is existing, and then how we've replaced all of that parking with in-kind parking to get, I think there's about 90 spots just on that area right there. And so just the same kind of look and feel with the same color blue, but.
I should have warned you about the passionate feelings of blue.
Sorry, it's like the Eon Old Town, right?
Yeah, the Eon Old Town and blue on building.
Yeah, got it. We can change that for the report. It's not a big deal. So just some other views of it. We think it would help them give you more space to do your farmer's market on Saturdays and re-engage that space a bit more. So kind of the same look and feel we went for with that one. Now this one, you'd be driving around the building and entering from the parking side. So really the front of the building is on the parking side, especially the other building really is more urban, where the entry of that building is off the corner of the 2 roads. Any color you want.
Just not blue, and then you're fine.
Presumably, from the street edges, we could introduce entrances, one or more.
You could if you wanted to.
There is some
Yes.
pedestrian traffic along the street.
You could, for sure. I am very cognizant about providing more egress ways into places that can cause security issues. So we just need to think about how we want to manage that and how it's seen. But maybe if there's some sort of a atrium or entryway that kind of spans the width of the building would make sense. I just want to be sure we're not introducing some safety concerns. Any questions about this one?
Just a quick question. I know this is just a draft, but is that what we're thinking, is to push it up to the street?
That's what we're thinking. You can give feedback all you want, but I would like to hear some feedback. But we're thinking that because it gives more of that field-in parking space, kind of a protected bookends with the barn and the new building. And I don't know, it makes it feel like it's more, I keep using the word protected, but shielded or just not that main road, right?
Sure, but ultimately, there still could be landscaping in front of the building, things like that to kind of make it such a fortress right on the street.
It will have to be, because it'll have to follow city standards for planning and stuff.
And then the other thing is Pickering was one option where we could kind of tie that into the historical barn if so desired. Was the idea where that one, the architecture is a little bit more similar to the barn itself, kind of historic as a clock.
There are some interesting requirements in the urban planning zone that we'll have to work. You'd have to work on that with your design team.
So actually, we could just make that red, like the barn. But, I mean, it looks like are there any other thoughts or ideas, even very long-term, what to do with all of that open space? Because there's not necessarily, there is a lot of open space in Issaquah, but, I'm thinking of Confluence Park and what a fabulous space that is. Are we potentially losing like some really cool park space or something else by doing this? Because I look at this and see parking lot with some lawn.
Yeah, that's talking about parking, right? If we cut this L part off of the parking and we provide 45 spaces of parking, would that provide the city with some better benefit on that side, right? We were just replacing in kind, because what's there is what's there, just replacing that. But yeah, it's a good discussion to have about what you want that space to be.
I'm not aware of any long-term plans for that property. Yeah, and talking with our Parks and Community Services Director, Jeff, who was at one of the meetings too. We have shared this as well with the Parks team and with the folks at Pickering Barn that run the market and other things. I think that would have to come in further design work too, in deciding how much space the market needs, right? And what the requirements are for parking, for adding another use here. But
also, what infrastructure could you add to that parking that would help the market, right?
Yeah.
Support that.
Yeah.
Knowing that you really can't, you have a 200-foot buffer essentially from these trees, so you're not going to be building any other buildings on that right-hand side of this building, right? Because there's just that flood, the buffer for the building wetland. So, yeah.
Councilmember Marks? So can you explain again, how you address, what are the ramifications of being in the 100-year floodplain and the mitigation features of these pictures?
So the mitigation feature is you just raise the building up, I think it's 4.5 feet above the floodplain. Like raising it 4.5 feet will get it above the floodplain where it needs to be. And that mitigates the need.
So is it raised up in these pictures?
I don't remember having that conversation about it, but no, I'm gonna say no, it's not.
So in actuality, it would sit a little proud above the surrounding terrain.
I think it'll be right level with the street.
Yeah.
Slide 19 looks like you didn't raise it.
Slide 19. It's not raised. Well,
You'd raise the surrounding land.
we wouldn't raise the parking, right? Yeah, but we would raise this. It would be gradual. It's not like all of a sudden you're just going to have a like. It's.
I'm just trying to understand.
It would be about level with the road. the bottom of the building will be about level with the roadway. Because it comes down a little bit right there.
So it implies that the floodplain area only really goes up to the road. You're not raising it up at all. It's only at the same height as the road. It's on the ground, right?
We need to raise it up so that it is out of the floodplain. And if I recall correctly, and I will double check before we put anything in the report, I think that means we need to raise it 4.5 feet.
4.5 feet. You know, if we were
From its
8 feet
existing
or
plane.
10 feet of mountain, then we have a whole level of park we would build.
But then it's gonna cost as much as structure parking, just saying. Maybe 2/3 of structure parking.
Caroline and then Chris.
Yeah, I live right by this site, and I've been thinking about both these locations, taking pictures. I was at the farmer's market on Saturday for the 35th anniversary. It was packed. The parking lot was filled to overflowing. Costco's insane across the street. And there were people utilizing that park. There were a lot of picnics, people playing games. So even though it's a huge site, putting that building on that field and that area, it doesn't seem like the best solution. And I brought some pictures to show my group and kind of ponder that, what that would look like, be like, function-wise. And are we gonna do timelines for both, comparing timelines for both sites? I think we did that.
We had timeline in 2
Right.
meetings ago, right?
Yeah, just to compare the timeframes for these two.
Yeah, they weren't significantly different.
But Pickering was longer, right, because of the environmental stuff.
There was a
Little bit.
3 months.
Only 3 months?
I think
That was more like.
It just depends on how King County feels about that. But
Oh, yeah. That could go either way.
Yeah, a couple of questions. If we're build up in the floodplain, I think we'll have to provide compensatory storage volume,
we'd have to what?
provide a compensatory flood storage volume somewhere. Having had to do that before. So it means digging approximately equivalent volume somewhere else.
I've raised buildings before and not had to do that, so we'll have to look at that.
Okay, so that might be a cost that we want to look at to see if we need to include in this or add to it. And then this is more of a just a qualitative question. Do give it your best. I think you said this one had more issues, or the perception or the feeling is that it has more issues. So right now, is that factored into, is that kind of why like this one's about 4 million more than the other one in the total?
Yeah, it is.
That's what it is.
I mean, the issue is that we have to stay 200 feet away from the creek, right? So we're just in the corner. And then we have to raise it. The other ones in the 500 floodplain, we don't have to raise that. This one we have to raise up. So that's just why it has more issues.
Caroline. So back to Caroline's thing on the market. So what's there now? I haven't been there in a while. I don't pay any attention. I go to Costco in the back way, so I don't see that one. And I never go to the farmer's market. My wife does, but I don't go. So what's in that space now? And how is the farmer's market utilizing it on, Saturdays, 6 or 4 months out of the year, right?
The only thing that's on that site right now is see where that red dashed outline is?
Yes.
That's a parking, that's a kind of a,
So the net gain, we would actually be adding more parking.
this is exactly equal parking.
Oh, equal parking, okay. So I don't see it being, not that I pushing anybody, but I don't see it being much of a net change in terms of the market, right? It might be a net benefit because now there's another cover climate controlled space that could be used by the market as a community service in yellow there. I don't think it's all bad. It's some give and take, because I know there's nothing you can do about the market's density because it's a popular building now. I mean, Costco built a whole large parking structure that still, people use on the weekends to go to the market. It gets pretty full, right?
I also had a clarification on Caroline's comment. Were you suggesting that because of the Saturday market and because of the grassy areas, it gets used by the public? And I see that also. I happen to go to the Saturday market about 5 times a year with my wife.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah. So, but were you suggesting that because of the grass areas that people do use a lot during the Saturday market, that the Pickering site altogether it wouldn't be the best location because of that, or just the location of the building on the Pickering site?
I don't think this is a good location for the building. I think it'd be detrimental. I think it'd look really weird if you look at, pictures from the road. It's green space in that beautiful barn, which they're using that. There's a roller skating rink in there. They do it for weddings. There's a ton of stuff going on there. Putting that building on the corner, and somebody I think brought up urban sprawl as well. It's going to look really strange as you drive along that road, having that fortress-like thing on the corner there.
Yeah.
You don't really see the Costco. There's trees. Costco actually built into the trees.
Like 7 new Costco buildings,
And I just want to understand, like, was getting lost over around.
Right, and this is also a high density, this is zoned for high density development. So that's the way the city has chosen to develop this area.
Community.
And there is the other Costco, and there's the new Costco office building, of course, which is the true monster, the Death Star.
In the back,
Yeah, but very busy. Yeah. The other question I had, I was asking for, I just wanted that clarification. So it sounds like, Caroline, you don't work anywhere on that site. Over on, you want on where City Hall South is right now.
That definitely has my vote.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
The other question I had, and we talked about this briefly, but I don't know if that ever fleshed it out, is the impact. Do we have any stats on the impact of current local businesses near the current City Hall South, which I believe is why it was located there, to help vitalize downtown Issaquah and bring some dollars into the restaurants for lunch and all of that kind of stuff? Do we know what those kind of dollars are, and do we know what the impact would be if we moved City Hall to Pickering on those businesses that have grown up around that current level of business?
No, we have not done that type of assessment. As Lori shared, we're thinking 20 to 25 cars that are employees, that are folks coming to a day to the building. You might have a few customers as well. Depends on what the use is of City Hall at night too, and what kind of people might be coming to City Hall to use it in other times. Yeah. And if they would also be visiting. But no, we have not done that assessment.
Certainly it would be an impact though.
Yeah.
I think in general, there's not that many people at lunchtime, because how often do you go out to lunch around these businesses, since you work there every day?
Call us out.
Yeah.
On the record.
On the record. Not that often. Sometimes, yeah.
I don't think you would. I'm just saying, because it's not, there's economics involved. But the upside in the evening for the community events, that would be more likely to bring people to those restaurants. So I think the lunch crowd is probably a wash, but the dinner crowd might be a net benefit for City Hall South location.
Jack's doesn't even open until 4.
So Mike and then Rob.
So we've kind of wandered already into what will be our upcoming exercise, and that is kind of the pros and cons, or the benefits and challenges, or however you want to characterize it. And each of the sites has opportunities and challenges we just heard around the table. I think we're going to capture a bunch of those, and then we're going to come back together again, and we're going to start, kind of reporting out, and what does that look like. And part of what we're trying to get to today is there a consensus on what we want to take forward to the council? This is our last meeting. So it's been, all of these questions and pros and cons, I think, been a healthy kind of primer, but we're going to get to kind of dive a little bit deeper and share, those perspectives on what we think are the benefits, I think, and the challenges that come with either of those sites. they both have both, I think. So looking forward to that.
So you said this is zoned for like urban density. Is that mixed use? Are we in 30 years going to have a large number of new people living in that area? Who are maybe going to really want nice big green space or access to a city hall, right? It's like, again, thinking 30, 50, 80 years down the road, how valuable is that as open green space and what's lost for, the grandchildren?
Well, and as Mayor Paul, yes, Mayor Paul.
Even up and down in the chair. Just for some perspective and to make you guys really have something else to think about. That area is zoned for 8,000 housing units. It's unlikely 8,000 housing units will be built. Tallis is 1,100 to 1,200. Highlands is 5,000. We're talking 8,000. We're talking it being the densest, most populated area in the city. And in the environmental impact statement, the community made it very clear that they did not want this to be just buildings, that you need to have key green spaces, that you need to have wonderful opportunities. And in their discussions, they talked about access to the state park. Who can walk across the street and be on a lake and in a state park? The state park's not going anywhere. And so whether or not there have to be compromises made, will it be as green as maybe if you moved into Old Town or someone else? It might be less green because it has Lake Sammamish State Park there. So those are exactly the kinds of challenges. But think about this as potentially being the densest area, the most populated area in Issaquah.
Jonathan?
I wanted to go back to the City Hall South. I had a question for Lori. What's the footprint difference between what we have today and what you're proposing there? Roughly, is it 25% bigger footprint, or is it?
The footprint of what you have to, the existing city hall building, not including the jail, is the same size as the city hall functions in the new building.
I'm talking about the building that you would want to tear down.
Oh, the building,
City Hall South.
City Hall South.
City Hall South, I think it's 8,000 square feet.
Yeah,
It's probably like
Footprint
4,000,
Yeah. 4,000 footprint, 8,000
a
square
little
feet.
bit more, 5,000 square foot footprint,
So you want to increase it by
double.
Double it.
double on that
A
same.
little bit more than double.
Okay. Thank you.
To meet the high restrictions and to get the whole program on the site.
Okay.
What were the restrictions on this site if we did have state or federal dollars? Do we know?
We'd have to go through the process.
We'd have to go through.
The federal
data. We'd have to go through
For
the,
whatever is attached to those.
For historical
yes,
preservation.
Oh, I see.
yeah. And usually what happens, I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen for this case, usually what happens is you have to document the area, provide some sort of educational benefit, there's things that you have to do to mitigate it. They won't ever, no, not ever, they don't usually stop a project happening.
Otherwise, we can do whatever we want with the site.
That is
Within
what
code.
city staff has told us.
There are no restrictions.
There are no restrictions.
A question for the mayor. You mentioned that the area is zoned for 8,000. Are you saying that if, say we don't put this here, that it could potentially put 8,000 houses there?
No, that's your call, not mine. That is a task force question. What I wanted to just provide some information on is, it's hard to visualize what's not there. I always call it the invisible line in the sky. Until Costco built those buildings, nobody knew you could build a building that big, but you can. We're expecting and planning for up to 3,000 housing units, so half the size of Highlands or twice the size of Tallis, to be built in the next 20 years in this area.
In that same area?
In this same area. 20 years later, probably another 3,000 to 5,000 housing units, and then you're getting to the end of the life of buildings. And so some things may be constructed in different ways after that 50 years, and then, there's not great reason to keep the same building, so redevelopment. So I just wanted to give you kind of the high end of the story, that invisible dashed line in the air that says this is going to be more vertical. It's going to have smaller green spaces in between things, And the challenge for you all and the city council when they vote on it is, does this fit in with those two things? Providing spaces for the most dense population within the city of Issaquah to enjoy those green spaces and things that you have, and access to services. Some people may feel like if that's going to be our highest population center, why wouldn't the city hall be there? So I don't have an opinion on it, but I figured I could add a little bit of information.
But to be really clear, you're not talking about building housing on this property.
Could you help visualize where? Yeah, so we should talk a bit about just Central Issaquah plan in general, because it's more than just this area.
I love the Central Issaquah plan. I was on a reader team, a task force similar to you in 2012, and I looked at the environmental impact statement as a community member. And I think it was a really good community conversation at that time to say, stop going up the hills, no more trees coming down, let's not have these ridiculously steep roads and super high retaining walls. This is the place that you can build vertical better than these sensitive areas that we so love. And so it's a compromise. The Central Issaquah plan is a compromise. This area is not going to look like any other neighborhood. It's going to look very different than every other neighborhood. Typically, the type of construction you're going to see here, and Councilmember Marks has asked about this a lot, is that is a sandy, difficult area to build on. And so maybe most people won't build as high as Costco. Costco drove something like 800 pilots to support the building. That was the pounding you heard for 18 months. So others may not decide to spend on that. What you've seen already show up in town is kind of the 5-story, 4-story building, and I think you can assume the next phase is going to be 4 to 5 stories. Think of Atlas, think of Anthology, Vale. You're going to see that kind of infill as larger properties become available. And you'll notice as they do those properties, they really think about community space on site, but there's no way that it's as spacious and green as some of our other neighborhoods. And that's the compromise. We're going to put it there. We're going to try and create connected trail systems. We're going to create access to trailheads. We're going to create access to the state park. And so that's sort of the background on the plan. And while we have made some modifications during the moratorium that we had, it's still kind of the flavor of the plan is that this is a new kind of neighborhood. We're not exactly sure what it's going to look like right now, but there's a couple of buildings up there that can give you a sample.
Where though? Are we talking?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
East Lakes Managed Parkway, Newport Way, State Route 900 Front Street, 1,100 acres.
All along the freeway.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to Jason, and then maybe we'll try to wrap up and break up into groups.
So I don't think it's a secret, I'm kind of more of an advocate for the Civic campus myself. I like that idea. But I think it's interesting what Barack said, and Mayor Pauly, is trying to think about this 30 to 50 years in the future. Is that big footprint what we want there? Or if you are going to see more density, would you want to see things more like small grocery stores, small restaurants, things like their own little tiny shopping malls with those 15-minute neighborhoods? And to me, that would be a better use of area like that. So, thought I'd just slide that in before we get into the groups. But that's kind of what my thinking was.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, I'm on my card up. I'm just chiming in on Jason's card. But yeah, no, I mean, it does seem like a better use of that neighborhood with the amount of residential that's coming in. And Mary Paul, you mentioned that with that amount of residential coming in that they might need city services, but the average resident doesn't go to City Hall that often, right? I mean, I've been there for forever, basically. I'm there for work usually.
But there's also community.
Yeah. So I don't know that. So and with the small green space that might be available for these larger multifamily developments, that's not that much. And plus, you're limiting the developer with the green space on the development site. This site to be used for that green space into the future for the grandchildren, like somebody said down here, I think is a better option. And I'm glad you came today because the amount of residential that's planned for that area was not part of the discussion that we had when we voted on these sites. This is new information. And I'm wondering if we had that information when we voted on these sites, if Pickering would have actually been at a score of 33 or it would have been a little higher. I don't know.
Can you remind us when we talk about having a community space here, what we're talking about?
We are talking about a number of rooms of different sizes, so that can meet We have some rooms that 30 to 50 people can meet in, some smaller rooms like that. So we're talking really about meeting spaces and then how that might bleed into the outdoor space. At this location, it wouldn't be able to do that at the Old Town location to provide those amenities. But we're really talking about spaces for HOA meetings or Girl Scouts or, all those kind of things. So that's what kind of space we're talking about.
I will tell you too that Director Wadlick of Parks and Community Services said if this is a site that proceeds with further study, how excited he would be to have a landscape architect as well involved in what the interplay would be with the built environment along with the open space. Like this, the opportunities here are way more than what we're seeing here, I guess, as a start. So that's something that was, right when he saw these, he was like excited by that. Yeah.
What's interesting though is like City Hall South already has their green spaces attached. Whereas this, if you were gonna have that density in 30 to 50 years, these areas could become a small amphitheater, kind of like we have concerts in the green, which is going on right now. They have that in Old Town. This, with all that density, 5,000 homes in 50 years, this green space could become their area versus having a massive footprint by a City Hall that again, very few people. And granted, 5,000 plus people, you're going to have more traffic in City Hall, but again, small amount of the population uses City Hall on any given day.
I'm going to take a little umbrage with the word massive. Costco is massive, this building is not. This is it's not huge by any stretch of the imagination. Its footprint is probably smaller, about the same size as a Trader Joe's. Generally speaking.
But the parking lot would be better, right?
The parking lot can be whatever we want it to be. This is the quickest depiction of what kind of space, like what amenities we need to have there. So I just want to be very clear about that. Not massive. Yep, across the street is massive, it's not.
Okay, so I think ideally we would split up into two groups of roughly equal numbers. I think we have 11 people here now.
You and Mike gonna be like team leads and you're gonna pick?
Yeah, right. So, well, I'm not gonna.
You're gonna count off? That's all I'm talking about.
Here you up against the wall, we're gonna pick it. This is being one, two.
Even numbers and odd numbers.
Yeah.
One.
You don't want us to go to what slide we prefer that city south?
No, I mean, I think that's kind of self-selecting.
Yeah.
Okay.
1,
2, 3.
No, back to one.
One, two.
1, 2.
1,
2.
1.
2, 1, 2.
1, 2.
Okay, so how about one is City Hall South?
Okay.
And before I go, again, I just want to tell you, it's fabulous conversation. I love how information hungry you are. And conversations you're having are super important. And you all are giving up your time to do it. I'm going to go to another meeting.
Okay, so we're gonna try to do this in about 15 or 20 minutes. Where's group 2?
Where's 2, Paul?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
So.
How about we do group 1 over here and group 2 hanging out here? Does that work?
Yeah. Now we're copying.
Yeah, pick somebody to record. Right next to
We'll do it. I just don't know.
Right. More than one person did.
Okay. Although.
Come back together. Then maybe the consensus is we make a recommendation of the other way. Or if we really feel like there's strong pros about then maybe our recommendation is. Talking about
do some. We find some areas.
I'm not.
You have a designated.
So you ready to go? Call back to order?
Yeah. So.
Coming back to order? Really sweeter? Power I have. Okay, is everybody ready to reconvene? I think we're going to do a presentation of our brilliant work.
Brilliant. I think the handouts that Autumn provided probably overlap considerably with the pros and cons that we've listed there, but I think it would be helpful for us to go through those one at a time. So April, you're going to present?
All right. City Hall, City Hall South, as mentioned, for the connectivity to existing services. I'm going to skip this one for a minute because there's a highlight there. I mentioned that it's, current transit, I feel like it is more of a hub right now. We appreciate the harmony of government, business, service in general. The walkability, less money, maybe. I know, remind me what that little footnote was for, because we were never were talking about how it was a little out. That's right, okay. I think we can all agree it enhances image in the area. Protecting Old Town vitality, I really like this comment, anchoring downtown. Somebody had mentioned that they've seen certain city language because they do business or a government entity. And this would really stabilize our downtown from that to the years. We appreciate the proximity to IPD. It's this, we can't quite quantify it, but we feel like IPD and City Hall should be close together. Can't explain it, but I feel it too. And then preserving the paper and specialties or opportunities that they cannot building there does preserve that type of other opportunities. Cons, we appreciate that there's a cozy fix. That's nice. And I thank you for cozy. We talked about it, access and traffic, that's always going to be hard. Parking at City Hall, challenging. I think even with certain provisions, still will be tough for people. Okay. Less convenience to customers, so we're going there for business. We have ours. The size limitation for potential plaza. We talked about having some sort of adjacent space that's community oriented. Makes it a little harder unless we dissolve maybe some of that the duplex issues. And then other potential, if we don't build there, it preserves potential for others. And then this one, these two, they're sisters. Pros, building on the site does maintain a certain level of latency. It's very benefited in this spot, speaks to us. But the con is that it's status quo and it's not thinking about the decades ahead and the inevitable expansion of our city. So they're tied together, side by side. So, okay.
All right. Nice job, April.
Thank you, April. And clearly we have a few plans, City Hall South, that we're working hard on. So you can see ours we tried. But one of the things we tried was, one thing that we like about the Pickering site was access, right? So we don't have a lot of roads, a lot of arteries to get there. And parking obviously is going to be a big plus. Parking really shouldn't be a problem there. This one we kind of shoehorned in near parks and trails. Again, we're talking about city hall employees or the few people that come and use the actual facility. So don't know how important that is, but they are there. Higher building, obviously that's a plus. More flexible space configuration. So again, we can build the city hall without trying to cram it into City Hall South. This one's going to give us the possibility to kind of make the building more functional to what we need, what City Hall needs. Better construction logistics. We were thinking just, and again, obviously this is a short-term thing, but just building it. You guys can all see what's going on with Bank of America right now. They have it chained off. Clearly here, staging is going to be much easier at Pickering Barn. Scalable for future expansion. So in 30 to 40 years, if this site needs to be expanded, much easier to put another wing on it, probably do addition. And then we also have synergy with Pickering Market. So again, kind of doubling down on a city function, a London city function, so synergy. This one we left in a question mark because we really don't know where Salem Trans is going. But it could possibly be a boon. It could also possibly be a problem. So we left it on the plus list because we were looking for more positives.
Is that, is it right where we're going behind the post office? Is that?
There's no specific site at all. So kind of our thinking was, again, if it comes down the middle of the freeways, what does that present in terms of, you know, where we're going to have a platform again, we're into the line. So trying to think about that. So again, we don't know which side this should be on. It could possibly be a valid. And then as far as the gates, clearly less green space and having that removed for something that could possibly be better utilized. What that future is, not quite sure. It is more expensive. I would argue it's incremental when you're thinking of 52 to 56 million or whatever they were, but it is more expensive. Someone brought up that we could use that 4 million to possibly buy the antique shop. So again, that money can be repurposed. Problems with Fed and state funding. Clearly here, working in the floodplain and the historic register, more issues here, which probably has a longer checklist that we have to go through. And currently, we're not near any residential areas. And really, with the exception of Costco, there's not much going on here at the moment. So again, most people are going to be utilizing their cars to get here, possibly bikes. Public transit. We don't believe there's a lot of public transit going to Costco. Most people, when they go through their shopping, take all of the Costco.
Carry the toilet paper off.
12 rolls. This does have a longer timeline. We thought this was longer, although Lori clarified she did not think it was much longer. Again, it might be insignificant, but did have a longer timeline. And at the moment, it would probably have a lower economic impact for our downtown businesses. Just think right now, again, in about 20 minutes, everybody will be leaving concerts in the green. Some of those adults that don't have children are going to go to Jack's, Las Margaritas, and have a good time around Old Town, trying to find their cars. Whereas there, you really don't have it. So probably a lower economic impact for our Issaquah people. So that was kind of it for the Pickering location.
All right, thank you. Okay. So do you have a slide that outlines the potential recommendations or the categories of recommendations that we,
Do you want to see if there is any more discussion or consensus on the location before we move on?
Well, I think, I guess the question on the table at the moment is, do we feel comfortable recommending one site versus another? Or would we feel more comfortable saying, we've identified these two sites, the pros and cons, and we throw that to City Council for consideration for both?
Can we go to?
I mean, we can recommend anything we want.
Should we have a single recommendation?
I think we should at least try and see if we can come up with a single one, if we can.
We may be already all on the same page, or there might be a total split.
Exactly.
Or another way to characterize it could, oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I've felt for a long time kind of what my personal recommendation has always been is like that. I always wanted to recommend City Hall South with the caveat that for some reason it's not workable once we actually get into the nitty gritty. Pickering Barn is the backup. It's kind of what my personal recommendation has always been for a long time is that that's where ideally it sits, but recognize it's tight, it's small. You know, there's a lot of factors going in there, and if it can't work, then this is the backup. It's personally how I've seen it.
So for,
I have a question. If we just presented the two options with pros and cons of each to city council, how would they arrive at a decision?
They'd form a task force.
We don't have reporters anymore.
Speaking as one of seven, we would view it as that these are the two options that the group looked at, and that there was a healthy amount of enthusiasm for both of those options, and we would feel that I would feel that if I picked one of those two options, I'd be operating within the spirit of what this group had done, and if I picked an option not within those two, then I would be operating outside the spirit of this group. That's how I do it.
So it would go to like the city council vote then, so there'd be discussion, and then it would go to vote, and it'd be a 4-3 or a 3 or a 5-2 or whatever.
You're trying to zero it.
7-0.
Yeah, no, I mean, 4-3 is game.
But that's how it happened, it would go to a vote probably.
Yeah, I think so. And we would take this under advisement, and I think I think that either messaging is fine from this body. If this body feels strongly about one option over the other, they could send that to council. Or if the body really truly feels like the body isn't strongly one way or the other, it would be fine to come back with two. I don't think the council would view it as in any way a failure if you guys came back and said, we like these two and here's why we like these two.
And then just let the council vote on it.
Yeah, let them.
Especially because this isn't the only thing this group has done, right? There's also everything leading up to this that we've talked about that'll be included in the recommendations, right? Like the phasing, leasing for a short time frame, to secure a conversation to actually fund this kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
The work is substantial.
I'm curious about what you are actually voting on. Is it voting on the next step to, do more of a feasibility or more studies on a specific site, or what's the action associated with?
I don't know how the city has it teed up.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of this is what comes out of this,
Okay.
and administration would work on what the next steps would be. And not to get too far ahead on our slides, but part of that is then task force going and sharing its recommendation, and then administration coming back and saying, all right, we're hearing what this recommendation is from the task force. Our next steps may be, we've got to figure out funding a bit more, right? What the impacts are, and having those options for council to look at. We hear the priority is PD, so let's work on what the next steps are around that. And until then, we know, council has wanted a longer term plan for City Hall. We have those marching orders, our next steps doing more scoping around that, or more engagement, or whatever those next steps may be, and whittling down to a bigger decision. But I think I've heard loud and clear from this task force, the priority is PD. So, getting going on that body of work, I think would be priority too, so.
But I think you should not also shy away if the group has a preference, then you can feel free to say that. It's not, you don't have to remain, right? There's a lot of other things.
I know that we do a vote.
But again, as I said, there's only one component of what you're recommending.
Yes.
All these other things that we've already done are part of the recommendation, the list of recommendations you're giving to council. It's not just this site or this site for City Hall. That's just one small part of what y'all are doing.
Police station on that.
Yeah, Mike,
Yeah, I think we should see where we land, if there is a preferred alternative, and then there's a second. Obviously, we have two sites that are viable and have pros and cons with each one. And then there's always the third option. We always need to make sure that shows up here, and that is unanticipated opportunities that might arise during a time of debate and discussion around this. Gives the council a backdoor to get out of too, so we're not in opposition to what might come out of this task force. But I think we should see where we are. If there is one of those sites that, we feel is the preferred alternative versus the other, and make that part of the recommendation. If not, we can send them both. Clearly, they both require significant additional work to figure out even just from a viability standpoint, would it actually work and how much is it going to cost to do it? And there could be, something could come up like contamination of the site or something that could drive the cost significantly higher on one over the other. So there's a lot of risks, I guess, or unknowns that still have to be worked out. But I think, just thinking about where we've been and all the information that we've seen, this is kind of the last piece of the big puzzle that we've talked through, and that is there an alternative that we think is the preferred alternative?
Jason? Yeah, I would kind of summarize those ideas, and I would think that for our city council friends, this would be one data point out of hundreds, maybe thousands of data points that they'll look at that could change and be a moving target. So again, as this group, I think the information is very important. We've put tons of work into all of this, but there's things that could come down the future, like I haven't seen the results of the community survey, for example. Like that has been happening, or I took that survey, maybe I missed the results, but that could factor in. I mean, there could be design options that we're not even at the point of threshold of crossing yet. So I think I would not want to walk out. Look only at this data point. There's going to be know about yet that are going to come, that they're going to be faced with. So the recommendation is very important, I think, but we're going to have to trust the city council to look at all of that in its entirety before that plan.
We don't have to worry about that though, because staff does a really good job making us look at all the data.
That's good.
Chris? I was just gonna say, we're kind of tiptoeing around the words, but maybe we gotta vote and see where we are.
Yeah. Before we vote, I just wanted to ask, I don't know if it's Autumn or Lori that could answer this question better, but Zach brought up some of the ancillary issues with choosing one site over another, and they didn't land on either cons of those, but could you please remind us, if we chose City Hall, then we would have to lease property for a short period of time to house city staff while City Hall was being built, right?
Yeah, yes, and I think part of the other recommendations we'd like to get to after we talk through City Hall is what that looks like. And hearing that some of the priorities were a phased approach, live within your means, priority is PD. Part of that is at some point we would have to most likely lease and phase this. I think the other thing I've heard from most task force members is we're not ready to go up for a ballot measure right now that covers both PD and City Hall. That the timing is not right for all of that to be as one package. And so knowing that phasing, we would have to lease or find a spot for City Hall while we continue to work on what the City Hall plan looks like and figure out a funding plan for it.
Yeah, was the cost of leasing in the construction cost you already figured, and you know what I was gonna say?
No, because it's the same.
Pardon? Oh, yeah, it wouldn't depend on either site, if there's a preference on the City Hall site,
okay.
yeah. But,
That's happening.
Okay.
yeah, it would have to happen either way.
So that's equal.
My opinion on the lease aspect is that while we probably don't have the horsepower to get both projects approved by the public, I would hate to just be kicking the can down the road about City Hall and have an undefined lease period. That somehow that we communicate that to the council. So, are we ready to vote?
Do you do dots?
I didn't read dots today, I'm sorry. This is just gonna be a show of hands, right?
So is it option 1, option 2, or either? Is that what we're
Seems like it should start with 1 or 2.
Okay.
And then
I mean, getting back to Paul's comment earlier.
Yeah, so can I, just for council members, might put you on the spot here, making the call today. If you want to keep your hands down, I would
understand. Does the group have a preference what they'd like us to do?
As far as voting?
Yeah, would you like us to just watch?
Well, you should vote for the task force. You're here as a task force member, right?
Yes.
And you should vote.
We're not documenting who votes what, so.
Well, okay, why don't we do, why don't we raise our hands for City Hall South if that's our preference? Okay, we got one,
Wow.
7, 8, 9.
9?
8 or 9?
Counted 9.
9, yeah, I counted 9.
Okay, well, I'll see you guys later. Contributed too.
So that leaves how many for?
Well, you gotta read
Pickering.
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 Okay.
5.
So it's a poor
It
vote.
would be the one ambivalent. I could go with either one.
That's why I kind of want to go like this.
Right.
I think community preference.
Close, close.
Yeah.
Really close.
I think there's an acknowledgement that option B is great too, either way.
Yeah, you can put that in there, if it was,
Yeah.
didn't try for this, fine for this, so it's.
I would like to second Paul's motion that, I don't know, we're not doing motions in seconds, but if we were, I would second Paul's motion and say we could put forth option A, which I guess is going to be City Hall South based on our vote, with a strong second place option, like a strong option for Pickering.
Is that right?
If more discussion points come up in the future that it's like, well, City Hall South is just looking more and more difficult and more like
Yes.
the wrong choice, we should really
Yes,
switch over.
Yeah.
I think we could,
Yes.
I think we could word that properly.
No.
Do you like your?
No, I think, yes, so here's,
Third that.
here, right. So I think how we, really quick, how we characterize this, because I'm hearing, it's not like I'm so all in on my choice and that's it. That's not my sense. Everybody's going, you know.
Not
So
everybody.
maybe there are some that are, maybe I shouldn't have spoken out of turn there, but, so I think we do characterize it as there's a preferred alternative, but a second strong alternative that is also being brought forward by the, this was not a unanimous choice and we'll figure out how to word that in the report, but so that it is clear that these are both very strong sites for the future for a future city hall, and that there's not one that is.
I think they meet the objectives, right?
Yeah,
Didn't
they
we
meet-
have those goals set forth early on? So,
I think what that, from my perspective, leads to, let's look at them both, let's push them both a little bit further down the road and see what happens. Because, you know, the City Hall South site may just come off the rails because it's maybe too cozy and it doesn't work out. So I think as a task force, we can figure out a way to word that recommendation that is a preferred alternative with this second, and this was not a unanimous choice. Yeah.
so no dissent opinion. I don't have to craft anything.
Yeah, so we can kind of get to both the sites on the list.
So do you feel like there is consensus that the folks who voted for Pickering have been heard and feel like they would support City Hall South as the preferred alternative?
I
There
can.
were five hands.
I can express that my opinion changed even in the last meeting. So I was very, very focused on City Hall South and that property, but the more I've learned, the more I've pivoted toward Pickering. So.
Carolyn, how are you feeling? You comfortable with the?
Yeah, it's almost 2-1 for City Hall South. And that's been my objective since the very beginning. I haven't heard enough to convince me otherwise with all the things I brought up.
So around the table,
So I'll add, when we started this and we started looking at the properties, I was like, City Hall South, absolutely. And we got looking at Pickering, and I was like, not a bad second choice, or even not a bad first choice, because it does offer a lot of stuff. So in terms of consensus, if City Hall South is the one that gets built, I'm not gonna have any wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
My consensus is, I think either one, or my opinion is that either one will serve the city as far as we can envision today. Pickering might go a little bit further in taking the city services, or serving the city for a longer period, because it does offer a little bit more flexibility. But it does have significant other drawbacks that make it a little less desirable for some of the constraints that we put on these properties, right? So again, I've been hurt. I don't feel bad. But I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, just to push it to the council that here's our stronger first choice, but here's a perfectly acceptable second choice if something pops up on the first choice that makes it unworkable. Because I know there's more layers to this onion moving on appeal. Yeah. Right? I know there is.
Lots of other opinions of other people.
Right. And other constraints and, the community, the neighbors, we already have the antique store's brother coming in and saying, don't choose City Hall South, right? I mean, he was quite adamant.
No, he didn't want it. No, let me rephrase it. He said, don't, if you're not gonna talk to him further, you can't use his property.
He
doesn't care about the.
There were other negative, the access. My wife and I have driven down Sunset there, and she was looking down that alley going, I don't see what that guy's problem is. It seems like it's perfectly fine to me.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I've been all over these properties. Like I brought up with my group, what I'm thinking about is when I talk to my neighbors, because we have to sell this, we have to get a bond, we have to finance this thing. Did we go for the most cost-effective solution? Are we building on a site that already has a building versus building in that field that a lot of people love? How do we sell it to the public and get it financed? I think it's going to be an easier sell with City Hall sales. It's going to be an uphill battle either way, but way tougher to sell Pickering. So that I've got all that too. We've got to finance it.
Okay. I think we actually do have consensus.
All right.
And I have one more comment on the funding for the IPD. Wasn't there that recent legislative action about this additional sales tax for public safety? So maybe the IPD thing doesn't actually have to fall into the bond measure.
We have some more things we want to kind of get clarity on as far as recommendation. I think this is a good lead in.
Yes.
But I'm hearing, so preferred alternative, City Hall South with a very strong second alternative in Pickering. Okay, all right. So quickly, just how we got here, and I think part of this will be part of the report that we'll be developing with DLR and the work that you all did as far as thinking through these factors is how we got here. We put a few things up on our next two slides just to make sure that we're doing a gut check here of, go to the next one. Some of the key messages that we've heard that would be reflected in the report. I wanted to get a gut check on if we're on the right track on some of these things. So top priority is addressing police space and function needs as soon as possible, stressing urgency based on the public and police safety, recruitment, retention, all the other things we've discussed around why PD is so important. So that would be number one, as far as a recommendation is to address PD as soon as possible.
Can you emphasize that already was established like on day one? Like
Sure.
before day one, like I think I remember you saying some members that went on the tour were like, what can we do right?
Yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah.
So emphasize that.
Okay. The recommendation is to remodel the existing building for police. That includes the top floor. I know that you looked at two different options that DLR had started to draft for PD. It sounds like, there was more interest in the maximum reuse of the building. I think that we'll probably land somewhere in between those two options and talking with PD about what their needs are. And that this group had a whole lot of trust in whatever PD needs to function effectively is what you'd recommend. And so I think we'll go back with PD and work more with DLR on what that middle ground looks like as far as what a remodel would be for PD and those costs. And then moving administrative staff out of City Hall to allow PD more space as soon as possible, which means a short-term lease would be most likely as far as an option. Are we on track on those? Yeah?
Yes, and if there then isn't funding for City Hall, that short-term lease is until the end of time, right?
Or they move in here,
Yes.
yes.
Or they move in here, okay.
Or we go tell
Hmm?
them. Or we tell them.
Okay, okay, so even if there's no new City Hall, eventually you'll deal with it somehow.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I go over that? So the second bullet and the third bullet are very similar. So you're going to remodel the existing building and includes the top floor, then you're moving staff out. Is that just to make room for the remodel, or is that to get them out of the way and inadvertent or interimly use that space for police while the remodel is being designed? And I mean, it's a timing question.
Oh, sure.
Between those two bullets.
Yes, I would envision that we'd be moving City Hall staff out first, as step one. Giving PD space and then working through what that phase-in looks like for a remodel.
Yeah, just as long as we're not moving inefficiently, like if people are moving everything upstairs, that we're like, everybody gotta get out, right? We'll just have to look at how efficient that is, but yeah, I would think the sooner you move City Hall out, the sooner everything gets going. Yeah.
Okay.
Once funding has been established.
That's kind of where I was. You're not going to move them out until funding is in place to do the remodel.
Right.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Question, did this body decide that we couldn't do funding for City Hall at the same time as we did funding for the PD?
I think, and that's, in the next slide is that discussion topic. Okay. So is that, I heard many times that this is not the right time for us to be doing a large package that includes both. But if there are other feelings, I think that is something else to discuss.
So, I like the way it's worded, find a way to fund the whole solution. And that leaves, there's a lot of moving parts to funding and how you might accomplish that, but it is a comprehensive solution to fund the objective of remodeling the police and building a strategy to fund construction of the City Hall. So, because I think if we break them apart and you say, okay, we're going to fund police, and even if you go out and get a bond, if that's what's required to fund the police remodel, to fund City Hall after that, if you're going to and need a bond to accomplish that, is a long shot at best, I think. I think you got to find I think you need a strategy that's the whole, whatever that is.
Yeah. That's my earlier point about not kicking the can down.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is that is a different message than address PD needs right now. So if there are other funding options that for, say, remodeling PD, whether that's bond or something else, is it a priority to get that done first instead of packaging everything together, which it sounds like the timing is not right now.
So can I answer? So I think from a funding standpoint, if you can fund police without going out for a bond or fund, a large phase of police, whatever's needed, then you do that because that's what we want to see happen.
Yep.
I mean, and for the benefit of the community and for the police staff. And then a more comprehensive, larger funding package might come together that includes the City Hall that goes out to voters. But to go out with two separate packages to voters, if that's where this ends up, I don't think that's going to be successful. I think it needs to be a comprehensive strategy.
Yeah, I was going to voice and say that as a task force member myself, I don't have the opinion that it's like that they need to be separated, but I recognize the difficulties of it and recognize that I don't know a lot about elections and bonds and how to get them across the finish line. But that I do feel these are very intertwined. It's like I do want PD to get what they need right away, but I don't see how you do that without addressing City Hall in some capacity. They're very intertwined problems. And the desire, yes, is to deal with PD right away, but again, City Hall's going to then be just out on the street and have to figure out something right away and then be stuck. So, yeah, like there's an element of like, unfortunately, on me, it's like, what experts there are to figure out how can you get all these things across the finish line.
Well, some landlords would be happy with a long lease.
Yeah, the city won't be happy because it's going to be spending money on this long lease and then not have money for a City Hall. That's exactly.
So I've been involved in levies in the city for 20 years now, and we have to go with a comprehensive solution to the voters. I'm totally with Mike. And more to the point, I am on the record as opposing any leases that are open-ended. The only way I, as a council member, can support a lease for city hall staff elsewhere is if we have a solution for city hall. It can't be that at some indeterminate point in the future, we'll hope to move them back into their permanent home. That just won't work, and it won't fly with the voters. Like, they'll see that, like, what are you doing? So I'm 100% around a comprehensive solution that we put in front of the voters.
And I think that's what council agreed on or said as this was directed to a task force. Like, there was a lot of concern from council in general on open-ended leasing, right? And that was one of the things we wanted to be in this one.
I think it was also about even where is City Hall going to be?
Well, and that,
right?
of course.
Because it was like, well, if you don't know that, then you don't know how you're going to fund it because you don't know, right? All we had was a cost. So.
I pose the question this way: if there was a way to fund PD improvements without going to voters, would there be? Is it more important to address PD first and lease out space until there is, I don't know, a different environment for going out to voters for
the plan?
The plan.
The plan.
I think you just kind of heard it from Councilmember Marks, is that we're creating one solution without a comprehensive answer to another problem. Yeah, because once that first domino falls, you've now removed, I mean, you guys will have to move once you guys start doing your remodeling and your improvement project.
But we haven't assessed the risk. What if the ballot, we do a comprehensive plan, the ballot fails? So what's the risk of it? I mean, you then, you're kind of piecing stuff together. What's your solution then? And then go back to, we're gonna try to find funding for the police, and then you do have to lease, and, it's an unpopular decision because people are like, I'm not sure that, going to the taxpayers now and saying, hey, we want more money from you right now is a great, I don't think leasing is as bad, I understand, but I don't think it is as bad, especially if you're leasing from. I don't think, as a taxpayer, I don't see it as bad.
Right.
Yeah.
It does.
You're still spending more money either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not looking at $54 million, you're looking at.
Life of it if it's done.
Yeah, if it's the next 25 years.
Well, I think that's Autumn's question, right? Do you just get started on the PD until you have your bond passed?
Yeah.
I think that's her point. Do you just wait until you get your comprehensive funds in order?
Yeah.
Or you pull the trigger because of the IPD has needs that need to be addressed now? I think that's the question, right? If I'm getting that right?
Yes, and I think that's hearing loud and clear. The priority is address PD needs now. But then the other message of this is not the right time to go out for a ballot measure is where the discussion is, is that more of a phased approach then, where PD is addressed first? We look at what those funding options are, and that does kick the can for a certain amount of time then for the next steps at City Hall.
And it aligns with priorities of this task force.
Right, because I think that's the inherent conflict, is if it's address PD needs now, but we're not going to voters with a full package at this moment, then we're not addressing PD needs now.
So many cards everywhere.
So, I mean, it's politics. And, I dealt with, in the transportation task force, with Mayor Butler, it was like 8 years ago. That was a disaster because it was it was never about transportation. It was about infrastructure. That was just a nightmare for massive amounts of work on a task force, like 5 times what we just did. And there are still giant ditches all along Newport Way for cars to fall into. And then there are some things that are finally being done 10 years later. And we talked at one point about like when we would even put something on a ballot. we don't know 6 months, 12 months, 18 months out what the political situation, the economic situation is going to be in this country. And if it's sort of a long-term plan, and yes, we have to deal with the police department, like, Lori, does your team, do you guys specialize in the ballot point, in the electoral? Is that, like, I mean, this seems like as much a question for political strategists and for people who've dealt with elections as much as anything. And I got my public policy background, and the politics of this sounds like I don't know how to do this. And I don't know that this is the group to make that kind of determination. Because, I mean, all the moving pieces are, it's just a different, it seems like a very different conversation and a different set of issues.
Right, this is a robust public outreach, also includes a robust understanding what the public has an appetite for now, not just educating about why the project needs to be done, right? It's understanding what the public wants as a whole as part of this next phase of the process.
Okay,
As
yeah.
well as understanding what your funding options are, because the police does have a tax solution that is potential available in addition to a bond solution that's out there, right? You could do a tax levy. So there's lots of moving parts in terms of that, but I don't think you all have enough information yet.
No, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, I'm at a loss at where I could imagine 10 different ways this could go.
So just reality check here, it's 8:33. Why don't we go around the table with some quick comments if possible, and move on. But I think the comments that I'm hearing are along the lines of, we would like to solve both problems together, but we don't really have enough information about funding to be able to make that decision on behalf of the city. Galen?
Well, Andrew, a couple meetings ago, I was a strong proponent of doing something now for the PD, but I don't know what that looks like, given all these funding constraints, right? Because there's really, I mean, because, you know, as a person who's had to, reside my house, you do things in stages, right? You bootstrap stuff up. This kind of seems like that kind of problem, because, if you open up the space in the building for PD, does that address a lot of their problems? But then we don't have any funding for where we have the city hall people that are there now, right? Because opening up the space is only part of the problem. But if you do that, then you're just, and then the city hall replacement doesn't get funded, then, what are you gonna do? So I don't think, I feel the urgency for the PD, but I don't know how we can actually do that, given the constraints of that we need the city hall funding to be in place first, before we can do anything for people. And that hurts me, right? It hurts me a lot, because I see their need, and know they're doing yeoman's work, and I would hope we can do better, but I don't know if we can.
Lori, I don't know if you and or Justin can answer, but when we had the discussion about, we don't want to go out with a bond this election, we don't want to go out this one. I forget what was the nearest one that seemed like the nearest date, election date. That seemed like. Was it?
No, that's too close.
No, I thought they were talking about like, all their election is like 2025 or 2026.
Because, I'm asking because we keep talking about, we want to do something now, but that's not now.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
I think that's the question we're calling is.
That's the best now we can do.
Right, there's much more work to be done on city hall, like, we've got 2 sites, right, that we need to do further assessment on. There is more work to come for city hall, and so how urgent are the police needs that's addressed first versus this coming together as one package?
But you can't do one without the other, I think, so I can come back.
You could, if you also supported a short-term lease for city hall, and we look at creative options for renovating PD first, but there's risk, right? And if we don't have the funding or the full plan for city hall. But that is that would be a phased approach.
It also would be two ballot initiatives,
Maybe, maybe not, because there also, I mean, there's the public safety sales tax, there's a levy. If there are other ways, there's been the discussion around councilmatic bond, if there's some way that we can figure out how to pay the debt. So if we are to segment this out and try to look at creative ways to fund, say, the PD improvements, is there appetite for leasing and making that the phase 2 as far as developing City Hall?
I think it's okay for the task force to have, a recommendation to do about the importance of IPD, and also to have a recommendation about, we would like you to have a strategic plan for funding everything.
Right.
I don't think they are necessarily in conflict with each other, right? You're saying, well, we don't see the solution, but that doesn't mean we'd like you to work on one.
Right. And this task force is now done, right? I mean, this is our last meeting, and it seems like that particular topic is like a whole nother series of meetings for another task force, or even continuation of this task force, at least educating and aware of the issues. Because the funding part is the part I know the least about, right? But I'm the most concerned about, for all the reasons we've already stated, right? The appetite of the voters to take on more, approve such things, and then how to deal with the clear urgency that PD has. But to me, when you say we're going to do this now, and we're talking about 3 years at a minimum from now, that's not now to me.
Yep. If I posed the question this way, if there's a way to fund the PD improvements without going to the voter, well, I'm trying to assess how urgent PD needs are and how important that is to this group versus the idea of funding everything together. And so if there's creative options for funding the PD renovations, is that the most important thing for the city to focus on? With the idea that would be concessions and a short-term lease, or that there would be a longer time frame for City Hall.
Well, I think part of it is you'd have to convince council. And you'd have to maybe convince our council friends that maybe either lease, maybe figure out something like, okay, we want to do the IPD renovations now, but, with the stipulation that we are looking at a 5-year lease for City Hall.
Right.
Because in 5 years, you should be able to take this bond, the City Hall bond to voters. At some point in 5 years, the environment should be good enough at some point for voters to look at a complete package that the city would have the time to put together, hopefully with a good PR team, and put that out to voters. The only bummer and the negative is you're kind of losing the public safety part, which would help, I would imagine, if you went to take it to voters, right? Because you're separating those two things.
But also, just saying, we have this open lease that we're throwing money at is helping you to pass a bond as well.
And I think that could help, but I'm just saying, okay, so now it moves from a conversation of convincing voters, and you're going, okay, well, yeah, the most important thing is getting our IPD, because we need to, clearly they're busting at the seams. Clearly we want to retain the best and brightest for our community. And so maybe it comes down to the point, we got to convince council that, yeah, we want a sunset on the lease for City Hall.
And that's the challenge with what I wanted to say, and that's why I have my card out, it's a great interjecting comment, is that with an open lease, you have this contractual risk where you have a landlord that, hey, you got to negotiate this lease that's open-ended, and you potentially, which is probably options by the city, like options to extend by the city in case the funding doesn't go through for City Hall, but then that has to be negotiated, and you could get yourself into a situation where the landlord wants you out of the building, and now you got to move a second time because the funding isn't coming through for City Hall, right? And the landlord only wanted you for 5 years because they want to tear it down and rebuild their property and redevelop their property, and then where are you? And that's why I think that what we've been arriving at is, I think it's been stated several different ways, is the comprehensive solution is the better solution, less risky. A little bit more risky for a public vote, but less risky on unknowns for both solutions.
Are we all okay compromising on our first bullet point?
Only if the public doesn't vote for the comprehensive package. We don't know that they're not going to. I think if you have the right firm that knows how to put these bonds together and promote the bonds to the public, there's This is a good community.
They picked us, I'm sure they're gonna pick it, and they're gonna pick a good team. So in that scenario, where they're gonna have the best and brightest, let's assume it's gonna work out. Are we okay saying, okay, maybe public safety is not, this police renovation is not our number one priority? Are we as a group in consensus that we can kind of mentally bundle them instead and say, it's okay to wait and then move forward with that determination?
I think it is.
Is everybody, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
So-
It's like, I don't.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
It's like, I'll say, I don't know city hall.
I'm not sure quite got it. Can I tag under?
Sure.
Why not? Why not? So I think there's, back to earlier on, and I think you, Eric, you even made the point, we don't have enough information on what the strategy looks like for funding this package. Right? So what we're saying is remodeling the police building is the front piece of the kind of the redevelopment strategy. But we want to make sure that the whole development strategy has an associated game plan to fund the whole. So you could, because there are a lot of moving parts to funding public facilities like this, and things might change in the future too. There might be other opportunities or less opportunities. But I think what the second bullet, I'd rephrase that just a little bit, and I would say create a strategy to fund the whole solution. You have to have the whole solution game plan laid out and how the best strategy to try to fund it before you pull the trigger on the beginning. So like, what's the overall redevelopment plan look like? What's the funding strategy look like? What's the community engagement strategy look like for the whole package? And that's the comprehensive strategy to advance a public facility like this, or multiple public facilities in this case. And I think that's what, at least from where I'm standing, the way I look at this, is there's a lot of different moving parts in there that we just don't know right now, but staff and the council will debate that and figure out what does the whole package look like? Funding, the redevelopment phasing, and community outreach, including potentially a bond. That's the way I would rephrase that. It's more of a strategy.
Councilmember Morris. I think this body should put together a raft of things that they believe to be conclusions from this activity. One of them is that we need to prioritize getting the police facility addressed. Maybe it's that we need a comprehensive solution. Get a list together, get agreement on that list, and then give it to Autumn and let her and the staff noodle on it and look at the options. And what'll happen is the mayor and Wally Bobkowitz will go poll all 7 council members. They won't tell us each, because we can't have a serial meeting, but they can go find out what all 7 of us think. And between what Autumn and staff can do and what the political side know is possible from the 7 council members, conclusions will arise. We here tonight cannot figure out when you should run a bond or a levy, or whether to run a bond or a levy, or versus councilmatic debt or any of that kind of stuff. You should recommend to the council that which you believe to be true, and then trust that between staff and the mayor's office, we will come up with a solution that is the best and greatest possible.
All right. So I'd say a lot of those messages are on the screen. So are there any that have people have heartburn with? I think on our previous screen, Jeannie, there was one around moving administrative staff out, moving administrative staff out of City Hall to allow PD more space. Short-term lease likely. I'm hearing kind of cut that part out, that yes, PD is a priority, but we also are looking for a holistic package. Is that?
Yes.
That may be part of the strategy.
Right, that comes out of.
That comes out of.
Next, I mean, that's too granular, I guess, is what to say is, delete that part to say the goal is we want PD to have more space on the top floor.
Right. And the
PD
second
is a
bullet.
priority, right? Yes. So all of that is okay. And then on the second slide, what I heard too was creating a strategy to fund the whole solution. Yes, okay.
I think that's a message, right? What Mike was saying and even Paul was saying, is to find out the comprehensive, you show it, and then let all of our wonderful staff and council members cannibalize it into what they can figure out is the best way to do it. But you still have to have the full picture, because they are all intertwined.
Yeah.
But let the magicians cannibalize it.
All right, so hearing the messages all sound good, except for taking out leasing, because that's too granular at this point. Are there other, what was that?
I would suggest taking out ballot measures timing, because again, that's.
Oh, that was just my question, I'm sorry.
Oh,
It was just a question for the group. The ones that are italicized and questions are just,
Got it.
yeah, we'll remove those. Those are more of just kind of the discussion questions. So knowing all of that, are there other things that are not up here that we need to include as part of that recommendation?
I just have one idea, and it was sparked by what Lori said at our last meeting, the Marysville City Hall building. I did some reading after you brought that up. Maybe a suggestion would be looking at recent new City Hall buildings near us, what they've gone through, how they've made it work, how they've funded it. So I think it's very optimistic that they were able to do that in Marysville. It's kind of apples and oranges with us, but it is possible and it can happen with the right messaging. They did some really creative financing.
Very creative financing.
Yeah.
That's a $15 million bond to build a $50 million building.
Yeah. So learn, like I'm saying, learning from other recent examples. It can be done.
Let's check their financial day.
I think our job here is done.
Well, sorry, one more thing. Not to go.
Oh, okay.
Clicking through. So that was just a question recommendations. As far as the engagement side of things, here's what we heard. Use the city's public engagement toolkit, focus the narrative on the why, the urgency, vision, the outcomes that we have identified, safety, community building, quality of life. Education is key, using visuals and facts and figures, sharing a virtual tour of PD bursting at the seams is part of it, as far as that education around what the status is in PD. We heard not asking for a level of luxury, but more of a level of make do for our community. Are there other feedback on key messages that we should be including as far as this write-up? Another thing that was brought up last time, and if you're interested, if we could reach out to you afterward, if there's quotes from task force members that we could then include in that report to council too. So not something that we need to hash out totally tonight, but it could be something as a follow-up that I could just ask you all, if you have some quotes that we could use as part of that engagement, I think would be helpful. Anything else we should be including as we continue engagement with the community? Losing steam? Okay.
Good luck.
All right, just quickly, DLR and the city will be working on a report out of these recommendations. We'll do that in coordination with the co-chairs to make sure we're on the right track with that. And then the co-chairs will be drafting a letter from the task force to convey to the city council with a presentation scheduled for September 15th. We'd encourage as many task force members as possible to be there to show your support for this work as we present these to the council. So I will make sure to send out an email and an invite for that meeting, just so that folks can see, not just our co-chairs, but others that were involved in this.
Eric is going to be, I think, out of town.
I'm gonna try to.
So he's going to be virtual.
Yep.
If anyone, I don't know, Mike, on your behalf, if anyone is passionate about presenting with Mike, I'm sure he'd love a second for the portion where the task force talks about their work.
You don't have to volunteer at the moment, but yeah.
Or you can go solo with Eric on TV.
But also would love to see a lot of attendance too from other task force members too. Yeah. Okay, I think that's the end of it, I think. Okay.
You might be able to talk me to the president.
Okay.
If I'm here.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
To you guys for all the hard work, all the information you come back with, questions, your patience. You're phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you to this group. It's been a
Lori and
wonderful
Justin, nice work. Appreciate that.
You can put right there. Do that to cancel.
And to everybody, it's been a pleasure working with everybody and get to know you a little bit. Thanks.
All right.
Great.
Happy hour after.
Jack.
Jack should be open.
Where are we going to park?
I don't think I could buy you a drink.
I'm going to officially adjourn this meeting.
Are we rolling on or
8:52.